I'm Don Aers, I'm the Technical Manager for the Ladder Association. And what I wanted to do first thing this morning, as an introduction to the talks that are going to follow, was to talk about ladder standards and an update on ladder standards and where we are, and in particular about the standard for telescopic ladders, which has changed recently. EN 131, the standards update, EN 131, the European standard for ladders, that has now been pretty much all revised and updated. Okay? That has been a work of some years, as you know. In fact, I think it's about 15 to 20 years since the Commission issued its mandate, and it's taken them that long to do it in completion. That includes now Part 1 for dimensions, Part 2 for testing, and the testing requirements are now all totally revised. That is now published, and that now contains 2 classes for ladders. So that's the professional and the non-professional class. And the difference is in the durability. It's in the durability. It's not about the amount of load that the ladder takes, because if you think about it, someone at work who's using a ladder, on the way home, they don't magically lose weight. They don't suddenly go from being 120 kilos to 95 kilos. And if you think about the old standards for ladders, they were based on weight. Bit of a ridiculous philosophy, really, because you don't lose weight on the way home. You weigh just as much. So now the standard looks at the durability of the ladder. The standard also, Part 3 for user instructions, that's been changed. And they've done that, they brought that into line with the ISO marking requirements. So now all the marking requirements of ladders and the user instructions, they're following ISO standards for how you present that. Part 4 of the EN 131, multi-hinge ladders, that is in the process of revision. And the story is not great at the moment, because the whole concept of EN 131 was that all the parts, so that any ladder would be identical in its requirements. And as you know, Part 6, telescopic ladders, that was one of the problems the UK had with Part 6, that it had different requirements to the rest of the standard. And that's why the UK published in its forward, its national forward to that standard, that we had doubts about it. Multi-hinge ladders, Part 4, unfortunately, that looks like that may go the same way. Remember that UK is only one person on a group, or one member on a group of different nations. And those different nations, they don't quite see it the same way we do necessarily, that all the parts should be identical. So there is a possibility when that revision is published that the UK will put on the front of that, no, we don't think this is a particularly good standard. I am glad to say, though, that Part 6, as I've said, that has been updated. That does mean that the UK will be removing from its national forward its concerns about telescopic ladders. But we're going to be talking more about that in a moment. And Michelle Rainey, who's here going to give our next talk, is going to explain to you about the issues that occurred with telescopic ladders and how the Ladder Association contributed towards trying to resolve those issues. And finally, Part 8, ladders with a separate platform. It was originally combination ladders with a separate platform. These are these multi-purpose platforms, ladders with platforms. That's now underway and that is ongoing, and we should see that finished by the end of 2019. That means the old British standards for ladders, they will be or are withdrawn. The ladder sections of those are. And that means that we have to revise those standards so that we can take out the ladder parts, because they're now in conflict with the EN standard, and leave the parts that dealt with trestles and stagings. And finally, I'm going to move to the roof ladder standard, BS 8634. That has now been published. Great move forward. We now, for the first time ever, have a standard for roof ladders. But what we need to do now is develop training for that, and that's going to be the interesting thing, because for the first time ever, manufacturers are going to have to think about how do you actually use this product. First time ever, probably, that manufacturers have really had to think about that one. You can make a product, but how do you use it? And there's a great emphasis now on when you sell any product that you have to be able to tell someone how to use it safely. And that really is something that people need to think about.